Serious, military or police service members of Reddit, what are the most spooky unexplainable things to have happened to you in your career? I don't really believe in supernatural stuff, but I have a few odd experiences. I started my army career at West Point. If you've never seen the campus, it's basically a creepy gothic castle in upstate New York. Instead of dorms we have barracks which from 0610 were falling apart and had no AC. My sophomore year, I was assigned to the so-called Lost 50s barracks which were supposedly haunted. I was an engineer student so I was pretty sleep deprived. I heard a lot of noises and random doors shutting, but at the time I figured the ghosts can have me if they want. The engineering program at WP is miserable lol. Fast forward to 2011 in Afghanistan. My best friend and college roommate was held in an ambush. The day after it happened I had a dream where we had a conversation and he told me to watch out for IEDs. He said when the road turns to loose dirt, you need to watch out. I woke up pretty sad and figured I had that dream because he was on my mind. I grabbed my gear and went on a routine convoy security mission. My vehicle struck an IED later that day on a dirt road and I ended up getting some stitches. Edit. Did not expect this much attention. Thanks everyone for the kind words. It's been a while since I lost my friend, but such is life and the best thing we can do is to be grateful for what we have. More on the unexplainable side. So I was in Afghanistan around 2011-2012. And we're all watching the Predator feeds because it's the start of the shift and no patrols had kicked off yet. We see one had tracked a motorcycle carrying 3 people. One with a bag over their head and facing backwards. We're all getting anxious because we know it's a kidnapping and we might see this poor guy get murdered. Sure enough, they lead him out to the woodline. Afghanistan is not a desert unlike what the media portrays. And have him kneel down. They wait 5 minutes, then pick him back up onto the bike. They end up in the closest town and we're getting more anxious now because they stop in the middle of the town and push him up against the wall. Then this ice cream cart is pushed into view. The guys take the hood off and hand the kidnapped guy the ice cream cart. Then he goes around the town selling ice cream. I was a dispatcher for a few years. One night, on our closed radio channel, came the sound of static and a person mumbling something. At first, there was too much static to hear what was being said. This continued for a few seconds at a time for an hour or two. Eventually, my coworker and I were able to pick 2 words out of the static. Help me. Everything that is broadcasted over the radio is recorded, as well as logging which officer's radio made the broadcast. But when my coworker and I went back to look for the recordings and logs, nothing was there. Nobody outside of our department should have had access to the channel. Apparently, this happens to a few dispatchers at the department every now and then. And the eerie voice always eludes being recorded. I was J4 for my squadron and securing lodging for an upcoming op in northern Afghanistan. We went to a compound with 2 large towers. Inside them hundreds of rooms for our guys. My job was to inspect all the rooms to make sure they had beds, pillows, etc. Thing is, this is northern Afghanistan and this compound has been abandoned for years. Not even Afghans are around here. Since there were 2 towers, we had security check the area for people. Once it was confirmed no one was there, I split off from my SGT to inspect the rooms. I was on the 3rd floor going room to room, whistling and inspecting when a door slammed. I freaked. I yelled stop and pointed my gun. No respond. I yelled again. No response. Fear is in my voice. Around us in the chamber. I back away. And as I'm making my way to the stairs another door slams. I ducking scramble. I don't know what's up there but I wasn't sticking around. Grab my SGT. And we both check it out. There is nothing there. No wind. No people. Nothing. To this day I don't know what was up there. But I stopped going anywhere alone after that. Spooky? Not so much. Weird? Yeah. I work as artillery support. I go out to the field with them and make sure they don't have to suffer through their scrapes and boo-boos. I'm almost sure that deer know when hunting season is. In season I never see them. Out of season they are everywhere. I crawled out of my sack one morning to find 3 deer in the woods behind my vehicle. Ignored them and started making my coffee and some breakfast. One of them walked up to me and sniffed at my food. I told her to duck off. She tried to get at it again. I promptly swatted her face away because that's my food, the deer can blow me. She snorted or whatever deer equivalent is and smacked my tray with her snout. The other 2 deer came and ate my food while I watched. Had to eat an MRE and watch deer eat my eggs and toast. Us Navy submariner for 8 years. One time I fell asleep on the sub, which there is very little time for, and I was so exhausted I dreamt of what I would later tell my friend, the dreamfish. The dreamfish attaches itself to our sub when we dive deep enough and uses some kind of brainwave ability to influence our dreams and read our thoughts. During which, while we fully realize and understand that the fish is influencing our dreams, it even communicated. I dreamed. Not through words. Just like emotional suggestions. It was the craziest, weirdest dream I have ever had. Now, I fully believe this is not a real thing, but I've had subsequent dreamfish dreams. Only when we were below a certain depth, I'd wake up and figure out what depth we were at during my time of sleep, which I wouldn't have bothered to know before sleeping. Does this fish exist? Probably not. Fall asleep beneath the ocean waves and see if it finds you as well. I don't know about spooky, but the most unexplainable thing I can think of is why are we outside the armory at 0530 when we aren't picking up weapons until 0900 and moving to the training area until 1100. Copper pisting because I've mentioned this story a couple times before. When I was deployed to Afghanistan, one of my frequent tasks was to help the guy flying the Raven, small UAV with an IR camera on it, at night, looking for insurgents planting bombs in the roads. Usually pretty boring. One night however, we noticed a circular hotspot in the corner of the camera's view. After flying around a bit to get a better view, me and the operator were wondering what in the hell this featureless hot sphere was. In white cold black hot, this thing was solid, darkest black, and was unmoving for about 5 minutes, after which it rapidly moved down, nearly to the ground. We were flying at about 160 feet AGL, then back up into the sky and out of range of the Raven. We called up the TOC about this UFO. They said it must have been a glitch. They had nothing on satellite view in that area. When we went back to review the footage, kept on a specialized Tubot laptop, the 5 minutes with the UFO in it were missing. When I was in the Navy I worked in aviation. During my deployment I was on the flight deck during the day once. Now the Navy is super protective of the flight space over aircraft carriers. Nothing comes close without alert jets taking off. One morning I look up and we all see this aircraft. Red star in the vertical star, just cruising along directly above the deck. They always tell us how the Russians are always testing our airspace and how we always react. But that aircraft was just chillin'. Few thousand feet above our flight deck. Coast Guard was standing helm lookout watch on a ship in the middle of the Bering Sea, completely isolated for miles around. While standing the helm watch, steering the ship, we got a sudden, very pronounced radar blip behind us. The officer of the deck rang up to the lookout, who reported seeing something making a wake, but it disappeared. Due to the shape of the superstructure, the lookout's fixed big eyes binoculars were blocked directly aft by the exhaust stacks. The radar blip disappeared too. Our only guess was that it was a Russian or US submarine that popped up to the surface and ended over again. Gave me a chill to know that we weren't as alone as I had thought. Another time it was mid-watch in the middle of the night, 12 to 4 AM, dark, very foggy, calm seas. The lookout came down. He relieved me on the helm and I relieved him as lookout, and he made an offhand comment. Man, sure is spooky out there. Well, the rest of that watch was spent looking over my shoulder, and every time our foghorn sounded I just about jumped out of my skin. It was so calm and so foggy that nothing could be seen beyond the fog that was illuminated by our navigation lights. I still get chills thinking about it, even though I know we were completely alone and there was nothing lurking behind me. The fact that I was on the Coast Guard's oldest ship, which had lots of ghost stories, didn't really help. Navy here. After lights out, the whole ship turns on red lights instead of white lights. So all the passageways, halls, are dimly illuminated by eerie red light. Being sleep deprived and hearing unexplained noises are common. Can't say one instance, but lots of small WTF was that dart. Oh, to be fresh on a ship again. Wouldn't go back if I could. So, on watch one night, me and my buddy were joking around. We were given strict orders not to go beyond the ECP. For any reason. Seems fair. Well, about 20 minutes into the watch we both start shivering despite it being a warm and humid night. Maybe another 15 minutes and we hear a blood-curdling scream from the woods about 10 yards from the post. I'm talking, it sounded like a woman was being stabbed, over and over again. It was at least 10 seconds of straight screaming. When morning came around, we asked, and we were told no one was out and no one was supposed to be in the area except for our guys. I served in the SAF as a combat medic, and was tasked to lead a medical support team for a training course in Brunei. Due to one of my medics falling sick out in the field, I had the privilege of taking his place and spending the night with an officer and a warrant officer, WO, on a narrow ridge line in MT Bayang, which was apparently a navigation exercise checkpoint for the trainees. As night fell, we were warned by the officer to refrain from sleeping in the middle of the ridgeline as we ran the risk obstructing the path of any wandering spirits. Out of respect, we took the advice and constructed our hammocks as close to the sides of the ridgeline as we dared. Being a light sleeper, I kept being roused by the sound of the occasional heavy footstep walking by, crunching on the dead leaves and sticks on the ground. The footsteps sounded human. But at that point of time at night, nobody was supposed to navigate the mountain in pitch black. The next morning, my auditory experience was validated when all three of us found fresh tracks, too big to belong to any animal, on the ground that appeared in inconsistent intervals. While I was stationed in Cherry Point, I had the duty of inspecting the Marines barracks on Thursday morning after field day. Most rooms were normal. Dust bunnies here, scum stain there. But one day I stumbled across something disturbing. I went through one Marine's room. He was a Ravi cat, and I noticed his wall locker was unlocked. Whenever I see unlocked wall lockers, I would go through them just for kicks. Well, this devil had somehow accumulated about 20 pairs of women's underwear. Some were even marked. When confronted, S&M stated, "It's not a crime to have women's thongs." Turns out, it is when you steal it from the laundry room. I was in the Canadian Armed Forces deployed in Afghanistan a few years ago. I was marksman in a team of 6. We were stationed to protect a dangerous goods route. No rural buildings near us for at least 20 kilometers. The area alone was not active at all compared to the rest of the stations. Anyway, we spent about 9 hours there with no traffic or any contact. In Afghanistan during the summer, it's very bright out and you could see anything coming miles away. I remember it being still light out and there was an unidentified shot that came our direction and hit our jeep. We took our positions and I looked where I thought the shot come from. I'm not a try and counter sniper, but when I looked, it was just bare desert. Not even thick grass or bushes. We held out for another 4 hours. We got the call to move out by command and we did. I still wonder where that shot came from. From time to time. Nothing too amazing. But I used to be a tank commander in the Marines. I was out in the field one night and had a dream that I was driving slowly down a road and had another tank strike mine at a 90-degree angle on my front left armor skirt. The next day, I was slowly leaving an air assault lane and my LT's tank was driving blind. He was infamously shitty at his job, at a high rate of speed from the left and struck my tank directly where I dreamed it had. Similarly, I had a predictive dream in high school about my friend flipping his car the night before he actually did. I don't really believe in psychic phenomenon, but my two experiences were pretty weird. My marine company were waking up before sunrise at 29 Palm Springs. It was maybe 5:30 in the morning. Everyone is sitting on their backpacks awaiting orders, when all of a sudden we see 5 bright lights coming from behind a hill that was about 200 feet away. The lights rapidly went straight up without a sound, then made a movement like a snake for several minutes and then in an instant disappeared from sight. We all saw it. Even the company commander saw it. He called for a company formation in the dark night. Sort of unusual to do that at night. He told us, listen, we all saw it and we know what it was. Don't ever mention it to anyone outside this company while you're still enlisted. I'll take care of this myself. So keep quiet and let's get ready to start the patrol. This happened in 1995. Spooky sheet. It's not really too spooky, but my unit was in New Mexico for training for 2 months at White Sands. We were shooting a night range, and it looked like someone had turned on a decently bright light. And of course everyone got mad because it ducks without NVGS. Well, then there was what sounded like the loudest clap of thunder I'd ever heard. And everyone looked up and stopped shooting. A giant meteorite had just passed through the atmosphere and blew up and lit the entire sky up as bright as day. I work supply in the Air Force, and we have a couple creepy stories about our warehouse that I always thought were just the other guys having fun. So one night I stayed up real late and decided to go sleep at the shop to catch a couple hours of sleep before work. I kept all the lights off and passed out in the office. And about an hour in I start to wake up to all these noises. Sounds like someone's running around the warehouse. So I look out the doorway and don't see anything. And all of a sudden there's a crash in the room next to mine. The chair was spinning and stopped perfectly facing the desk I was at. And all the computer screens turned on. I went outside and smoked till everyone else showed up, lol. On a routine patrol on my Coast Guard cutter in the Eastern Pacific. Late at night a few hundred miles offshore. I'm on the helm and the late night bridge watch conversations are the usual. People telling a few spooky stories. The radio crackles suddenly and everyone shuts up. Since it's monitoring channel 16, which is international hailing and distress. We get static for 20 or 30 seconds. Then singing. Someone is singing nonsensibly into their radio. It stops after a while and we all kind of freak out. Later in the watch the bridge windshield wipers turned on their own. The ocean at night is weird. Creepiest ever for me was getting human looking heat signatures over a graveyard while scanning with my LRAS. There shouldn't have been OPFA and it wasn't my scout so it got me creeped out good.